Hey everybody, we wanted to try and take a live video for the first time, as I do have a decent signal right now. We'll see as I walk around the field how we do. But anyway, you are looking at our 4 steers. They will be butchered November, December. They are about to head up our apple orchard, one of the rows. You can see some trees over here. They're gonna go up and then come down and up and down the orchard rows. So, as we have said in other videos, it was hard to establish orchard grass and even improved varieties of fescue originally right after the soybeans came off October of 2016. But the first bits, I'm going to pull this horse now real quick. The first bits of orchard grass that did come up struggled. However, we grazed them accordingly. And now, this is the oldest patch of established pasture that we planted with the sheep in the spring before we even got the grant. And it is a wonderful mix. To give you an idea, here is my knee. Hopefully you were able to see that. Oh, what happened? It switched to looking at me. This is awkward. Let's turn the camera back. All right, we're back, folks. Sorry about that. So we have a bunch of insect activity. It has actually been quite comfortable. In May and June, it was swelteringly hot. And so this did not get grazed as hard as it should have, maybe. And you can see here this stuff here that looks like carrots. This is ragweed. This is Johnson grass. The cattle do not care for the ragweed, but they will eat the snot out of Johnson grass. If you manage it well, that's fine. Just be cautious of the, I think it's prussic acid at the first hard frost. So our apple trees are doing quite well. This is, these sets have overwintered 2 winters now. To give you an idea, this is where I had trimmed in the, this past late winter. This is all the growth that it's put on this year. So now this tree will provide a kind of substantial amount of shade for those sweltering hot days as the sun dips down in the west. But for those of you who do not remember or haven't known us long enough, our trees are oriented north to south, specifically because we intend to maximize our pasture. If we wanted to maximize fruit tree production, we would do it east to west. Now looking back, the sun is going to rise in the east and set in the west. So what we want is these fruit trees to get wide, yes, but also wide in the lane. Inside or in between these trees, we're going to plant nitrogen fixing trees such as sea berries. We've planted 200 so far, and black locusts, and I'll show you some of those here in a bit. We still are working on getting our manure spreader up and running. So I say that staring at the mulch. That is how we're going to apply this mulch. We're going to put sea salt on the mulch as well as boron, and I don't know of anything else, but boron needs organic matter to bind to before you just throw it on the ground, else it will leach away. And we'll spread that with a manure spreader all over our fields, as well as put a second and third coating at the base of the fruit trees. Our chestnuts here on the north side of the field, they are starting to do well, especially now that the sheep are on a different property, grazing for him some of his overgrown shrub and brush. But again, for those of you who have not been following us a while, this site here is amazing. And yes, you have only seen the cattle so far, but this was built by sheep, not by cattle. They planted it, they grazed it, they fertilized it, and we managed the sheep in order to manage this. Initially, clover and chicory dominated. It was 95% clover, 5% chicory that first summer. And that's decent, but you have to manage it. So up here, this is one of our pear trees. We have another pear tree over here. And then this is our small plum orchard. There's only, I think, 11 trees, 6 varieties, maybe 7. This row here is our Honeycrisp apple lane. And these other apple trees in here, they're all different kinds of varieties. Pink Lady, Wealthy, I think, Snow Famoose, Liberty, Arkansas Black, Lodi or Lodi, however you say that. Anyway, so we have the plum orchard up here. Behind it we have sweet cherries down there. We have 1 or 2 sour cherries over here. Now I know this pasture is really tall, but those of you who are fellow grazers, you'll notice something. The orchard grass has no seed heads. We'll see what the cattle think of it in terms of palatability when they get up here. We did spread switchgrass. I'm not sure that I see any switchgrass yet, but there is a lot of warm season grasses, whether it's Johnson grass or otherwise. Until I see the seed head, I won't know that it's Johnson grass. So right here, I'm standing in the middle of our peach orchard and our plum, cherry, and apple orchard. Now I know the permaculture orchardist really likes to do NAP, nitrogen fixer, apple, pear, peach, or plum, interplanted all amongst each other. For simplicity's sake, I don't necessarily like to do that. Maybe I could have laid this out better and planned all like varieties of peaches to be ripe at the same time. All varieties of early apples in the same row, mid apples, etc. But I think this will do just fine. And as we expand to other properties in the future, if I need the cattle out of the apple orchard, I can take them to a different part that doesn't have apple trees. But anyway, I'm standing in the middle here, and we have a black locust tree. Also interplanted somewhere near here, it's hard to see with such tall pasture, are pine trees. So going this way, winds come this direction, so they come from the southwest going northeast. We wanted to plant a shade and wind break in here. So we have black locust and Korean pines. I was able to see them a while ago, and now I'm not so sure. But the black locusts are pretty easy to spot. Just from the time we planted them. Here's another one. There's another one. Another one. Goes all the way down to our weeping willow. We do have some weeds in the very human-centric form of agriculture. And some of these weeds are very vigorous. Some of them are a pain in the butt, some of them are desirable for me, some are not. No matter how you look at it, weeds serve a function. They are there for a reason. Even horse nettle, you have to figure out what that reason is and how to holistically eliminate it. Using chemicals is just going to cause more of the same problem. So right now the big project is this fencing. Not sure if you can see this, but we labored quite hard clearing inside this tree line so we have yet another source of shade. Now, one thing that's important to mention, we have posts on this line on both sides of the fence. We do plan on either renting long-term or owning the field behind us. When I get ready to run the water later this fall, we put in a gate at the end of that fence section. I'm going to run the water right to the end of that, right to that opening, and put a cap on it and shut-off valve. So that way, in the future, when we buy that property, I can just run it right off of that. Moving closer to the road now, one of the roads that our farm has. We just finished installing the rest of this fence. This is going to be our working area. Don't mind the corral panels. We had that up and just to prevent us from losing any animals before we put those two gates up. So over here we're getting to the hazelnut orchard. I do not think we did a good job planting these, and I caused the people, my brother and my sister-in-law, way too much labor, intense labor, the way we did it. The way we did it, I think mistakenly, was using a bull tongue plow or a sod busting plow, and we chiseled a channel or a furrow in a line, and then they had to get some of that loose dirt and pile it up around the base of these little sapling hazelnuts. In the future, I think it'd be easier, and we did this with the black locust and the Korean pines, just to take a shovel, shoot it in the ground, push it back a little bit, open up a slot, and then shove the roots in, push it down. No loose soil, no nothing. However, I would say, as we've learned from the Korean pines, who do grow slowly, you need to mark them off. These blue tubes protect them from the sheep to only such an extent. But they help us more to see where the hazelnuts are. Now, in these hazelnuts, we did interplant some red buds to fix nitrogen. We'll see how they survive. But let's just pick a random tree here. So this poor little hazelnut is struggling, but I guess doing okay. We didn't put mulch on it right away. We did have an Earth Day work day this past April, and some wonderful people showed up. I think on this project we had Dennis Cliff, his wife Jessica, and their family. So shout out and thank you to you all. But so there's so much I could talk about. This video could be 4 or 5 hours long. But basically, you see a narrow channel here. What we're wanting to do is move chickens either up and down once these get mature, or just let them roam throughout and fence this off. Maybe in the style of Reginaldo Hazlet Moroccan, we'll build a fixed building here, complete with water and electricity, and then we'll rotate them through this whole section. Chickens aren't really supposed to be in open pasture, simply because of susceptibility to aerial predators. We do have livestock guard dogs that will protect the chickens, but it's still in the chicken's instincts to not roam in the open. It is in the chicken's instincts to eat bugs, and our pastures are flush with bugs now, all kinds of life. I had passed by this trailer. Eventually, when we get around to it, we're going to use that trailer, back it over the creek, take off the tires and the axles, drop the bottom frame, and that's going to be a bridge. Our creek does get quite high at times, and that'll be a wonderful bridge that's capable of holding any type of equipment we could ask for. So you'll see here, this patch is a little bit drier. We seeded it last fall-ish, August, September. And being drier, we wanted to plant alfalfa. There is a little bit of clover in this. Most of this clover you're seeing has spread from other parts of the field. We still have a lot of brush down from our fence clearing. You'll see piles and piles and piles in this video. We're waiting for the weather to cool, and we'll burn those piles. And any bigger pieces, as I learned from my friend Rick, we will be using them in a sort of hugel coulter, where you bury wood, let it rot, and then in a mound, and you plant stuff on top of it, and the stuff you plant on top of it will feed on it for life. So we have some pretty nice fencing. I'm trying to walk faster so it's not so boring. You can see the difference in the grass here. There's more fescue in this mixture, but all of this is a younger, less mature spot. Now what I'm going to have to do later, if you see all this horse nettle, I'm going to come out here and pull all this horse nettle by hand. Theoretically, once the organic matter increases, horse nettle doesn't like it. Supposedly. We'll see. I'll keep you all updated. But this is going to be the site of our future bee area. As we were felling a bunch of black locust trees in this grove, I did nail one. But there was a natural gully type thing here. So what we wanted to do, there's one dam up here. We have a couple more small dams. Yeah, I'm in high school. Down here. The idea being we want to hold water in place and slow the water's travels on our farm. We don't want it just to run right off and take any nutrition with it. So we did have a pretty hard rainstorm last, and you can see where it chiseled out. But this here is so super dry. You can see lines here. This is where a disc had gone through, but we did not drill this grass seed. It was just the disc. That's the only spot that I guess held or something. But you can see the difference here. One of those check dams is still holding water, and I feel so bad. It used to not have enough water for about what am I saying? There were a set of late season tadpoles that had made this thing their home. It was sweltering, and this thing was drying up and drying up and drying up. It dried up completely for one day, and then it filled right back up with a huge rainstorm we got. As we increase our soil's organic matter, that won't be an issue. The soil will hold more water all the time, so that little puddle won't be surrounded by almost desert-like features, and it will just stay charged all the time. So this is a spot where we're going to bring the sheep through pretty soon here. We're going to use this in case August is quite hot. They're going to eat any of this honeysuckle or black locust regrowth. Then we're going to disc it and seed some shade tolerant grasses in here, mostly clover and fescue again. You can see these piles. we had piles and piles and piles and piles of brush that we cut out just to get this fencing in. So down here we're facing a rural highway, and it's pretty convenient access. We'll be eventually putting a gate in over here. To our left we have another independent field that we will rotate the sheep to. So having a gate here, we'll coordinate with a bunch of people to help us, but we'll run the sheep out onto the road, block the road, run them up not even a 50th of a mile. I mean, it is 200 feet that way. But you can see where we have stopped fencing. We now need to work on getting all these dead ash logs cleaned up and set aside. We would like to use them. I mean, this is a beautiful straight log. The base of that log is probably 21, 22 inches diameter, to give you frame of reference. This one isn't quite so long. It does taper pretty quick, but that base is closer to 30 inches diameter. That is a lot of wood, and if we could get access to a lumber mill, we would be sitting pretty. We do have an Alaskan sawmill, a bolt-on to your chainsaw type mill. I mean, look at this beam. That is beautiful. You could cut something longer than you could ever afford, we could ever afford to buy from the store. But you can see here, this again was planted in the fall. It's almost all grass, and we did put a little bit of alfalfa and some other things, but the mixture, whatever would thrive is thriving. What I mean by that, we planted a very diverse set of seed. So in some parts we have more grass. The grass seems to like where our ground kind of laid a little bit flatter and was shaded enough during the crazy hot temperatures we had in the spring, so it could establish itself, but also had more moisture. Up here, the same exact mixture. This is more of a hillside, and this, again, this whole field was row cropped, so it's not, there's hardly any organic matter. It's very dry and it's very hot. This faces south, but the alfalfa just took over. So this is one of those unique situations where we'll have to wait for or we will have to carefully look out for bloat. We need to make sure when they're on these patches, they're not going onto them hungry. So we're still clearing and clearing and clearing and clearing. It feels like that's all we're doing this year. But the trees we're leaving, we're trying to leave high value trees, healthy trees, a variety of trees, as long as it's not dead standing ash. And there have been a few cases where an ash tree wasn't dead yet, but it was in the way. We just said get rid of it. We do have a funky looking black walnut tree. You can see the leaves there. That is hopefully going to be our retirement. Sorry if I made anyone sick. We have some very sizable black walnut trees, some wonderfully straight without anything wrong with them. We can get, once mature, upwards of $3,000 a tree. So you can see here, this is about where we stopped clearing on this section. We had the sheep in here last winter, so we really fertilized the bejesus out of this thing. But this was one of the least fertile places on the farm. It slopes very steeply and it goes right into the creek. So this may be hard to see. Oh man, the bodacious is struggling. That's strange. So these 3 rows of corn we had planted on the same day. We have A, B, and Silver Queen. Bodacious, Silver Queen, and Ambrosia. And then these 3 rows we planted on the same day. So what we did, we ripped 6 lines, 1 for each row. Then so that way, as you see here, the water would slope off. This was terribly, terribly hard, compact clay pan right on top. We ripped 6 lines on contour as best I could eyeball it. I rototilled just the big clumps that were on top, and then we put down this corn seed. We buried the corn seed per se with wood mulch. And looking at it now, I have not been out here for a while. This is kind of sad. We did have a pretty rough storm, and it looks like it blew over a bunch of the corn. Mega sad face. Either way, it's still a win in my book. This corn helped us build soil. So our efforts were not for naught, if that's a word or a saying. That piece right in there looks way more lush than it otherwise would have. We've got orchard grass aplenty, and there are still some ears of corn. These 3 down here, what we did different, I dropped the corn seed, and then I put rabbit manure on top of the corn seed, then I put the wood chips. I don't know if that was too much for the seed or what, but it looks like something stunted the growth. Maybe it was the drought we had a while back. Don't know. Either way, I am loving that site. That is crazy lush. Once we're convinced that there are no more ears to be produced or harvested or anything, we'll send the cattle in and they will eat the corn stalks and most other stuff, and we'll send the sheep behind them, and the sheep will take care of the weeds like ragweed. Again, this is south facing. We need to clear all this stuff out. Here's an example of stuff we have not got to. Here's some of our dead standing ash trees. These guys are maybe 60 feet tall, but we've had a lot that are 90 and 100 feet. Right here, you don't really see any orchard grass. You do see some clover creeping in. But this whole area, I wish I could show you an aerial view in midst of this video. This is going to be our future pond. This is going to be a big deal for so many reasons. But this is the convergence point for water overflow from about 22 acres. It'll easily fill up. It'll be about a 3/4 acre pond. We'll take as much dirt from over here and build up a dam over here, build up this side a little bit higher. I'd like to get it at least 10 feet deep. We're going to stock it with game fish, have fishing derbies, etc. But the other really neat thing, when you dig a pond that size, you have dirt you have to get rid of, right? It's a curse, it's a cost. Well, one of the things we like to do is figure out how to make a cost or something that is a negative into a positive. So right now I'm facing north. We do get cold winters. We will have a reflective surface on the pond to the south. What we're going to do is put in at least 4 earthen cob huts up here. And the northern wall might be straw bale. I still have a lot to learn when it comes to that. This side is also going to be the beach. So we're going to truck in a bunch of white sand, white beach sand, which will give the pond a tropical look to it, at least in this deep end. The huts will have windows facing the pond, and we'll put in a boardwalk of sorts. So you're instantly transported to the Outer Banks or to Cocoa Beach or something. With them being made of the clay we're going to excavate from the pond, the clay's already on site. It'll involve the community. A lot of people, even just barely talking about it, have expressed interest. But it will be extremely low on electricity. We're still debating on if we're going to have enough plumbing to do a septic mound out here, if we'll make enough money off of renting them out, to have one septic system for each of the for all four houses, one between them all, or showers or what. Right now I'm thinking keep it simple and have just composting toilets but no showers out here. We could have a communal water spigot for people to get water out of. But yeah, I think it'll be a huge hit for people to be able to come to our farm, get involved with the farm, see how food is produced while living a way that, while it fell out of favor in the 1900s in America, it was a way of living that people used for thousands of years. There are cob structures that have been figure out ways to make money, conserve money, and still give back to the community. I hope our building these will inspire other people to build sustainably, to find other means of income for their farms, etc. And those, probably, knowing me, won't be the only ones we build. We'll probably call those beach house or beach hut 1 through 4, and we might put a few in the low woods, and we might put some on the high ground, and build them all differently and be able to rent them all out and hopefully get an income off of it, which would also attract people to buy some of our products, such as our pork. Hey piggies! Hey piggies, come here pigs! I just moved these guys onto this piece earlier this morning. It looks like they're rooting up the pasture. So after this video I'm going to move them, because this is good pasture. I don't need them to fix anything. I need them to leave it alone. This is a little bit too mucked up for my liking. The hope was that they'd muck up stuff in here, and they did a little bit, but wow, they did a lot of it. This looks pretty good, guys. Good job, huh? These guys are red wattle crossed on old line Duroc. The mother passed away. I'm not sure how old she was. We would have bred her one more time, but what we're doing is looking to start our own pig herd, keep 1 or 2 of these females that root the least, and cross them on a boar of a breed like Cooney or something like that that really is a good pasture hog. So through here we have more trees. Some of them we'll need to cut out. So to give you an idea, we're back at the steers now. What we're doing over here, we have a couple spots that I have inoculated certain the bases of certain trees with morel mushrooms, and that's in there. Oh wow, we had some branches fall. Okay, we will be including this section of woods we call the peninsula in our fencing, but this piece here, you can almost see a line. Let's see, right here, where we had the sheep graze. After coming out of that back corner, they grazed this, then they started making their way down to the left. This stuff, this area sits a little bit lower, so even in a drought, this stuff has plenty of water. And it did not have a whole lot of runoff from the row crops, so the soil health here is still pretty phenomenal. But you can see a difference. I'm gonna try and get on the line and show you. This was grazed last 4 months ago. This was grazed 1 month ago. So you can see what I like to see in the grasses is the grass blades being really shiny. That means that plant is extremely healthy and it's producing its own fats or complex carbs, not just simple sugar glucose. This is nice. I'm not denying that it isn't, but it would be better had the sheep been able to graze this piece along with this piece. What you don't see in here is a couple of the bare spots where the grasses had a hard time because the water sat in it, but they are exposed over here. Nature will fill in these spots. Actually, it's already working. So you can see here, that's a mixture of grasses and it looks like broadleaf weeds. The blue flower you see, those are chicory flowers. Normally you don't see so many, but we bought an improved variety of forage chicory. So for those of you who do not know, this is chicory. Again, we have a few different microclimates here. So we're standing in the low area, but if you go up the hill, that is hot and dry. Down here, I put perennial ryegrass along with a cover crop blend. And obviously you can see chicory, clover, different stuff like that. However, when you move up here, I started transitioning more to alfalfa and fescue and orchard grass. The orchard grass really does not like how dry it is initially, but it will thrive once we build up that organic matter. I did not put any perennial ryegrass because it needs more moisture. Another thing to mention, so you see some blue tubes here. These are full-size Antonovka rootstock apple trees. These guys are spaced out much wider. These will get to be 40 feet tall when mature. Now, one thing to note, these were all very, very healthy trees. So their struggles are my fault. But if you have sheep in the field and you are not protecting them, the sheep will devour these trees. Any bit of growth these trees try and put on, they'll just devour it right down to the blue tube every single time. It is really frustrating, especially because I spent, I think it was $19 plus shipping on each of those that have already been grafted onto a name variety like Liberty and Arkansas Black and Golden Delicious. And I think I spent $5 on each one that is just pure rootstock for me to graft on later. What I'm trying to do is wait for it to gain a foothold. So we have a clearing over here. That's where that bridge is going to be that we were talking about. Down here sits pretty low. So it's going to be questionable if we want to put down gravel or not. Over here, we've started our massive wood pile that consists mostly of dead ash logs. Why did we choose to put the wood pile here? Good question. Glad you asked. Over here is going to be a farm campsite. We will have water. We will have electricity over here. Reason being, it's flat. There are some good trees we will not cut down to provide them some shade. And it's near the creek, and it's a beautiful space, and it's removed away from our house in case people get too loud. It's removed as far as we can manage from 286, which is kind of a noisier road. But I think we'll be sitting pretty with wood for quite a while. Eventually we will fence all this in as well, but what we're going to do is take out a lot of the honeysuckle in here, and these are where the tents will go. I'm probably going to come back through and plant bluegrass, Kentucky bluegrass, a really nice soft lush grass. I did plant it out here, and I think that's what you see coming in. It's kind of thin, again, still very juvenile, trying to establish. Oh, what else can we talk about? So over here, this is the northeast part of the property. You can see more of the chestnuts we planted. The ones with the blue tubes mostly are Chinese chestnuts. Now in between the Chinese chestnuts, we went back through and we planted American chestnuts with some more of our family members. Nick and Tara and Holly and Josh. Thank you guys so much for coming out. It meant a lot. I'm hoping that I can show you guys some of the benefits of your efforts. Well, anyway, the idea being we wanted a row of shade-giving trees that produce nuts for the pigs that we can then run the sheep behind in the evenings, tucked into this tree line for the summertime. And these will also provide a little bit of wind dispersion in the cold winters. So lots and lots going on. This isn't even everything. This is only one of our fields. I don't feel I have quite the time to show you guys everything in one video. I've already been talking for 43 minutes. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. I'll try and do more of these as my cell phone signal has improved. That was a big limiting factor and why I was using Facebook Live more. But anyway, you guys take care, and we'll see you around.